Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Judges on Fire podcast, which is now also a video cast for the Tech Trailblazers. My name is Rose Ross, and I'm the Chief Trailblazer and founder of the Tech Trailblazers. And I'm delighted to be joined here today, fresh from some time away, hopefully on his boat, Enrico Signoretti. Enrico is a consultant for Gigaom and also with Gigaom. Good morning, Enrico. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, very well, actually, after my time off. And, I spent some time in Sicily. As soon as they opened the gates, with all this COVID thing, and I decided to, spend a few days off doing kite surfing and not thinking about analyst stuff for a few days. Well, actually, when I came back, so yesterday, I had a flood of emails to manage, but it was worth it.
Oh, wonderful! It's definitely so important to get a little bit of, sand under your feet, a bit of sea spray in your hair, and get away from it all. I think we're all looking forward to a bit more of that now that things
I think everybody's looking for it.
Easing up a little bit. Well, obviously we've spoken before, we've known each other for a long time. So just in case people are not familiar with you, Enrico, could you give us just a brief history of yourself, how you've come into technology, how you've come into the role that you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. I started a long time ago, just out of school, actually, even before, but, summer jobs, these kind of things, working in IT. And as soon as I finished my school, I started programming in assembly. That was like 30 years ago now, more or less. And then from there, I covered many different roles in in different types of IT organizations, including working for a startup, having my own system integrator, for technical roles as well as marketing, product management, and things like that. So I think I developed a knowledge of this market because all of this was about storage anyway. So from system administration down to product development and other stuff. So I think that that was the common trait of all my career. And a few years back, I think it was 2006, between 2006 2008, I started a blog, and it changed my perspective on a few things. At the beginning was just the newsroom for my small system integrator. So we wanted to have something to communicate to our customers, and then it became more independent, more open to discuss topics that were not directly connected to the brands that we were proposing to our customers and things like that. And it was a success. Maybe it was early, and so the idea that there were not so many bloggers around, and I got some followership, and more and more vendors and clients started contacting me for consultancy and writing papers and things like that. So at the time, I was already an analyst, but maybe it was not official from more than once I defined me as a blogalist. Something between an analyst and the blogger, because more informal than an analyst, but still, with my toes in the water. With real users and dealing with day-to-day problems. And on the other hand, I had a lot of information from vendors and everything. So trying to connect the dots was already in my, in my bag. And a couple of years ago, 2018, now 3 years, I started working with Gigaom, and it was it has been an amazing journey. In general, we built new products. We are different from other analysts from from many perspectives, and the company is doing great. So I think I'm very happy to be part of this team, of this story now, and that's all of it.
Fantastic. And what's one of your proudest moments in your career so far?
So I think that industry recognition is that happened a few times. I think it's one of the best things. I mean, when people meet you and say, "Oh, I know you because you write something that I read all the time," that's something that always make me happy, and somehow is a way to is rewarding. So that's really the proudest of the moments all the time.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So you've touched upon it a little bit already, but what's your area of expertise, and in that area, what are you seeing as hot and innovative at the moment?
So data storage is my primary area of coverage. Of course, data storage is changing radically, so I do a lot of around cloud, and it means that everything that is connected to storage and cloud is now my focus. From this point of view, of course, we have Kubernetes. This is really hot all across the board. I mean, it's not about storage, of course, but it's about new ways to develop applications, new organizational methods in large enterprises, also in small enterprises, and this is really interesting. Also, how the data storage is evolving to meet these new kind of requirements, and so you see a lot of these traditional vendors really changing the way they think about how to manage storage and data in general. And the other thing is probably today we see a lot of attention on security, but I think that even more is data management. I mean, it's not for everybody, but because we are piling up a lot of data now, and there is this need to make something out of it. I mean, it's not just storing because we need to store it and not delete it for compliance or other reasons, but people want to reuse the data. People want to understand what they have, if they can delete something that is not necessary, or understand security issues and everything. So everything started with security. So you start analyzing data to check on patterns for ransomware or things like that. But the same techniques can be used for a broader set of functionalities around data management. And I think that there is much more attention than in the past. I mean, now we talk often about petabyte size infrastructure, even in the smallest of the infrastructures. So that's something, and you want to know what you're storing, where, how, and with the multi-cloud is becoming even more critical.
Yeah, I mean, data management's always been a particularly important part of any IT infrastructure, and
yeah, it was challenging. I mean, in the past was not as important. I mean, it was always part of the conversation, but was very, never a deep, let's say we didn't get this deep dive conversation kind of in the data management. Data management was very high level conversation, and then we always stop it at some point because we didn't have the tools to do it properly. Now we have the tools. We have AI, we have machine learning, so we can understand the content better. We have much more CPU power, GPUs, and other accelerators that make it easier to scan all the data and find the relevant information. So it's just easier than in the past, even if the numbers are crazy.
Well, certainly there is always a lot of data, and that's not reducing on any level, not any level. So this is not a trick question because I actually know the answer to this one. But how long have you been a judge for the Tech Trailblazers?
A few years now. I think since the very beginning of the event, and it was amazing. I mean, the event evolved a lot. At the very beginning, was almost like a small group of friends and talking about new technology, new startups and things like that. Now the event is much more structured. I mean, a lot of names coming from different areas. So it's way bigger than the beginning. So it's a success from this point of view. I mean, something different from other awards that we saw in the past. So I was happy to join the judges team at the beginning, and I'm still here doing my part.
Well, you're very much appreciated. And yes, absolutely. Tick, correct answer. You were here with us in 2012 when we first started. So thank you for being with us on the journey. And why do you do it personally? What do you get out of it?
Well, I think that it's a mix of things. I mean, on one hand, you have the opportunity to see things differently. I mean, there are these scorecards and things like that. So I know many of these startups already. And I love the idea of, getting the Tech Trailblazer perspective on, on the scorecards and how they are organized and everything, so that it's an analytical method somehow that I like now. In the past was also an opportunity to, to compare differently from what I did. Now at Gigaom we have our radars, our mechanisms to to build this scorecards for our clients, but you always have to get multiple perspectives to have a full picture. So the fact that I'm just a small gear in a huge mechanism now, but the idea of sharing my opinion and contribute to this thing, I think it's it brings me a lot of value, and I can see how others evaluate companies, vendors in this case, and I think it's probably the most interesting part.
Brilliant. Well, we're very delighted that you continue to think that. Are there any insights that you'd like to share about the current state and the future for particularly the storage and the cloud categories where you're probably most active?
Well, I think, as we said, there is this huge transition from on-premises and to the cloud, and many organizations accelerated this transition because the pandemic last year, and they wanted to have more flexibility, agility, and consume resources and pay for them when they need them. So, in general, data storage is following this trend. I mean, even the most traditional vendors are looking at solutions that can somehow ease this transition. And And of course, data management, as I said, is another big part of it, because you have to keep control of the data, even if it is dispersed in multiple clouds now. So you want a single domain view of everything, even if you are using on-premises and cloud resources, multiple cloud resources. So this is becoming more of a trend, more of a, in general, more discussion that I have usually with my clients.
Okay, and what do you particularly look for? Because obviously we're gearing up at the moment for our 10th edition, so we've been doing this for 10 years now. What are you going to be looking for? What's going to attract your attention this year when you go through the entries?
Well, it really depends, because as you know, when we talk about storage, we talk about a lot of different things. So everything is changing, and even the categorization of storage is changing. So in the past, 10 years ago, when Tech Trailblazers started, we had a sort of convention of talking about primary and secondary storage, and most of it was about the access protocol or the type of system. Now it's more about primary and secondary data, so it doesn't really depend on the type of system where you store data, but how this system fits in your needs. So that the idea of primary and secondary data is the focus, and how vendors are working for to build the products and functionalities necessary to make to deal with primary data. So an example, I published a report about object storage this year, and some people were surprised that we had two different categories. I mean, traditional enterprise storage, object storage, and fast object storage. And many people asking me why fast object storage, but because now object storage is not seen as an archival platform, but it's a backend for Kubernetes application, for AI, for big data, for a huge number of applications that are much more interactive than in the past. But they want, the S3 API, they want a few things that are coming from this. And this is not archival, secondary, or tertiary storage. This is primary storage for this application, for this client. So this is why we made the distinction, and it worked very well. I mean, a lot of our clients really appreciated the fact that we were talking about, object storage in these terms. So this is why everything is changing. I mean, as I said, it's not primary storage, it's primary data that is the most important thing.
Okay, well, we'll be looking forward to seeing a few of those types of startups join us this year. What would you say, I mean, to take a look a little bit wider at the industry, I mean, we have our male and female categories for Trailblazers, and I know that you tend to look at those as well in the past to see who's, shining out as an individual. And one of our criteria for that, obviously, we're not looking at the technical capabilities of the people. We don't need to know how quickly they can type or how quickly they can, run a marathon. But we are looking at the kind of leaders that they are, and the kind of culture that they're creating, and the kind of, innovation that they're nurturing within their organizations. And one of the aspects is diversity. And this isn't something that you and I have spoken about particularly much in the past, but I'm very curious, as somebody, who's had a long and distinguished career in technology, what do you think will make a difference in that realm at the moment? I don't think there's too many people that doubt that having diversity in any organization.
Yeah, so the problem of diversity is is huge. I mean, if I look at most of the startups, the people that I meet every day, we don't have diversity in IT. I mean, they are. I don't meet very often with women and in executive position, and this is I think it's a shame. I don't know why. I mean, I'm not in a position to say why this is happening, but actually, you know, there are no women coders. There are not enough at least, and I think it's changing a little bit. I mean, there is no longer the stereotype. You know, girls play with dolls and boys play with I don't know, guns or whatever when they are kids, and I think I think this is changing, but it is taking like forever. And so even if there is a movement to help more female coders to come out or things like that, I think in general we are, you know, there are a lot of missing opportunities here, and I would like to see more women, usually, you know, in the executive position, because having a balanced board is beneficial for the company. I mean, different point of views, different, and I'm talking about women, but actually people of color are not as common as they could be. But again, I'm not in the position to, you know, to say more. I mean, it's something that I would love to see, but how to change this, maybe I'm not the right person to, you know, to find a solution or to comment on this.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. But I'm sure there is something that you will have an opinion on. And as part of our 10-year celebration, we're putting together some thoughts and would love yours on what do you think the next 10 years will hold in enterprise technology? You know, either generally or specifically for you.
Yeah, so 10 years is very long time to do any sort of prediction. I mean, we can talk about everything. We are thinking about sending rockets to the moon and Mars in, you know, in 5 years, 4 years from now. So, I mean, what we will be able to do in 10 years is too much. I mean, we can talk about general trend. I mean, in the next couple of years, we will have, you know, chip shortages and things like that will probably hamper a little bit, you know, some industries. But actually, maybe this will also create the opportunity to develop new technologies, something different, and more optimization to take advantage of different technologies to build stuff. And at the same time, you know, if I stay with my feet on the ground, I can see that, you know, all the data center is changing. Not only, I mean, on-premises IT, which is different and will be different in years, but I'm not sure that in 10 years from now we won't have, you know, on-premises IT, but it will be different from what we have today. I mean, everybody is working on new consumption model, so where you don't really own your on-premises infrastructure, but you use these cloud-like models to purchase and consume it. So we will see more a sort of on-premises cloud, which is not really private cloud. I mean, and things like that. So, but as it happened multiple times in the past, so the cloud is still very young, and we will have more and more abstraction layers on top of it. So to simplify data movement, to, you know, everything will be easier than today. There are a lot of things that we are, you know, we are experiencing right now. I mean, we are at the beginning of a new journey on about, you know, again, data management and how to reuse data, how to take advantage of, you know, IoT in a very different way. So we will have autonomous cars and things like that, creating huge amounts of data and things like that. So we are at the beginning of a new era. Data is everything. Is the like we said many times, data is the new oil. But you know, you can do anything with the oil if it's not refined, if it's not worked properly. So that's the thing. I mean, it's all about data, is how we are able to refine it. And yes, I mean, quantum computing will become a thing, probably, and many other things. So we will have faster computers. It's not an odd prediction. Way faster than today. Think about, you know, 10 years ago, we had these memory sticks that were small and unreadable and everything. Now the same memory sticks is, you know, 10 times, 20 times, probably even bigger. And they are, you know, resilient, they are encrypted. They, you know, it's, the industry is going very quickly year after year. So it will be cool. I mean,
yeah. And well, we're looking forward to that. We'll see how we get on in the next 10 years with judging some of those exciting startups. And, you know, obviously this has been a great year of change, and, you know, progress in technology marches on, and you've obviously just referred to that. What do you think tech startups, what's going to happen with them? What are they going to look like? What are the people going to look like who run them, who create them? How do you see that potentially shaping up in the next 10 years?
So I think that the pandemic changed a little bit how, you know, where startups are located. I mean, like for everything else, we are seeing now a more distributed world, distributed organizations and things like that. So, and I mean, in the last 10 years, 20 years, maybe more, we always had the Silicon Valley as the center of the world, at least for my job. And now, you know, with this idea of dispersion, of working from home, or finding different locations, and so the knowledge is more spread than ever. So, and, you know, yes, probably Silicon Valley will remain attractive, but there will be a lot of talents that will work from somewhere else, meaning that they can, you know, they will be less afraid of starting a startup in another location. So I don't know if this will make things easier or, you know, harder, because, you know, the concentration also helps, you know, faster evolution. I mean, there is more osmosis, there is more everything. But at the same time, you know, we learned that we can live with Zoom calls or things like that. I mean, I'm not saying this is positive or negative. I'm saying so that there are many more options than in the past. So I would love to see more startups in Europe, for example, now that or even in, you know, in other countries around the world. I mean, it could be easier than in the past. Even hiring talents.
Yeah, I think it has made a very interesting potential for people where now they really, really don't believe they have to be in Silicon Valley to be successful.
Well, it's a cost problem. I mean, we saw it in the last few years. So companies having offices in the Silicon Valley, but actually having R&D, engineering, and, you know, developers in other countries, because it's too expensive to hire developers in the Silicon Valley. So.
Yeah, and certainly from a balance perspective, you're also going to potentially not have to have people physically there. So you can have the best person for what you want, regardless of whether they're happy to move to California or New York or to Berlin or wherever that might be. I think it's
and also for the startup, it is easier to hire people, but also you can pay them less because they don't have to live in a place where it's quite impossible to find an house for a decent price. And so that's probably will change the way these companies think about hiring people and where and how. So definitely. It will be nice to see what happens.
Yeah, and those sort of buzzes around some of these sort of what we'll call hipster side of things, because obviously that was a bit more the consumer tech side of thing. Enterprise tech, you'd obviously want people who want to have careers, they want to bring up families, they want their children to go to good schools, they want to have a good quality of life, and that isn't for everybody in certain pockets. So it means that people can stay working for the types of companies that they will enjoy working with and have a lot to contribute to, without necessarily having to up sticks, move family around, not be where they can go kite surfing when they feel like it. So I think it's going to be an exciting time. And yeah, I mean, we've got some big plans ourselves, and it would be lovely to perhaps, we're running out of time a little bit on our call now, but to chat with you again about some of the future stuff that we've got planned, including some new categories, which we can hopefully reveal soon, and maybe some other new things. But, we're excited about, our 10th edition, and we're very excited, Enrico, that you'll be joining us again. So
well, thank you for having me. I mean, it's my pleasure to be here and help as much as I can.
No, that's really appreciated. That's really appreciated. And thanks again, Enrico, for joining us for the Judges on Fire podcast / videocast today. If you'd like to find out more about the Tech Trailblazers, please do visit us on the website, which is www.techtrailblazers.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at Tech Trailblaze. So no R, no S. And also you can find us on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for joining us today. Bye-bye now.
Ciao.